Shalom and welcome. You're listening to Temple Talk from the International Department of the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here, with me, Yitchak Reuven, and today is the 20th day of the month of Tammuz, 5775. It's July 7th, 2015, and this Shabbat, parashat Pinchas. It's also the Sabbath of the blessing of the new moon, Shabbat Mevarchim. We will be saying the special prayer blessing for the new moon of the month of Menachem Av, the consoling Father, that will be ushered in next week, Thursday night. Friday, the 17th of July, is the first day of the month of Av. In the meantime, here we are officially in the period of time called Between the Straits, based on the verse from the book of Lamentations, the scroll of Lamentations. All of her enemies subdued her between the straits, and the straits, S-T-R-A-I-T-S, referring to between the 17th day of Tammuz and the 9th day of Av, days of mourning, introspection for the destruction of the Holy Temple. We observed the deferred fast of the 17th day of Tammuz on Sunday, and that, of course, is the day when Moshe, descending from Mount Sinai, witnessing the revelry around the golden calf, broke the tablets. Later in history, it's the day when the walls of Jerusalem were breached, leading up to the destruction of the temple on the 9th day of Av. And these are days when we are completely focused as a people on the centrality of the Holy Temple in our lives and the loss thereof. And traditionally, these are days of intense spiritual introspection and customs of mourning that increase in their intensity as we get closer to the actual day of the 9th of Av, which this year is going to be observed on Sunday, the 26th of July. And according to the rites of the different congregations, whether Ashkenazi or Sephardi origin of Jewish people, these customs intensify, and we become as mourners for a close family relative. All that is understood, all that is universally observed by the people of Israel. But of course, this is Temple Talk. We are coming to you from the Temple Institute, and our entire take on the subject of the temple is somewhat different than others. I would like to say that ours is actually the mainstream, and I think that that's becoming more and more understood. That mainstream Judaism, as it were, the mainstream Torah experience is about the restoration of the temple, and that idea is becoming more and more understood amongst our people. So our understanding of these days is that, it's not enough to mourn, it's not enough to wail, to lament, to be miserable, to express our sadness at the loss of the temple, but rather our mourning has to be totally focused and honed on action, on doing. Just as we don't believe that the temple is going to come down from the sky, just as we don't believe that the temple is dependent on the Messiah's arrival, just as we believe that, like all the other commandments of the Torah, we as a people are obligated to do our best to fulfill them, so too we know that this cycle of pain, this cycle of lament and mourning is only going to change when we decide as a people, well, we really have to do something about it, because God has done His part. And we now are expected to do our part. And of course, that's the basis of all of our work at the Temple Institute. We are in it right now. We are in the 3 weeks. And I think the barometer, the acid test of who we are as a people, is clearly measurable by our proportional reaction and the way we relate to this subject of the Holy Temple. Top story past couple of days that's been reported internationally and here in Israel. One of the top stories is that CNN came out with a list of 25 places throughout the world
most threatened with extinction. I think that's the wording.
And without much explanation in the byline, and certainly not in the headline of the story, it was like, here's a list of 25 places that are about to become extinct. So you better see them like really quickly. Like make it your business to go and see these places because they're about to become extinct. And the top of the list, number one on the list, was actually the golden dome of the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock. I just make sure to call it a dome because it's not actually, if you're interested in the details of Islamic observance, which I'm not, it's not called a mosque. So they listed the Dome of the Rock, which currently occupies over the site of the Holy of Holies of the Holy Temple, the place of the Shekhinah, Divine Presence. They listed this as the number one site in the world threatened with extinction. So everyone is like, whoa, do they know something that we don't know? And you saw all sorts of talkbacks, postings, tweets by people saying, what, is Messiah about to arrive or something? Is the temple about to be rebuilt? Or are they just doing their thing, implying that the Jews are, the conspiratorial, treacherous Jews are up to their antics and they're about to destroy it? Are they just trying to help incite and foment and trying to imply and infer that we're planning on destroying the dome? And of course, further clarification is that their whole article was based on the fact that Jordan registered a complaint with UNESCO back in the 80s about the situation on the Temple Mount or something like that. Of course, the irony here, there are a number of ironies, as usual. One of the greatest ironies is the fact that the probably number one city in the entire Middle East that is guaranteed to last, that is guaranteed to be secure, that every effort is being made to preserve and to guarantee the equal rights, except for Jews, of everybody. That doesn't count Jews because we don't matter, you know that. But Christians and Muslims is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is, the amount of manpower, effort, money, security that goes into seeing that the holy city of Jerusalem is free for the access of everyone except for Jews, is unbelievable. So the last place on earth that is in any danger, as the crow flies, that is the Dome of the Rock. Again, this isn't about the fact that the temple is supposed to be rebuilt there right now. This is just as things are, okay? That's the first irony. The second irony is the fact that as we speak, Islamic State is busily destroying some of the most important antiquities known to man. The ancient city of Palmyra in Syria, another city just was reported recently that they totally destroyed the tomb of the biblical prophet Jonah, and that was the second tomb of a prophet that they destroyed in recent weeks, and they film all of these things very carefully. So those absolutes, I don't know.
They're destroyed. They don't count anymore. They got bumped off the list.
Sorry. Barbarians, whatever. We don't ascribe these appellations to ISIS because they are not definable, and ISIS is not definable in human terms, and these things fall short of them. But those guys, the ones I mean, the ones that behead everybody, they're busy destroying everything known to man, and they're not even mentioned on the list. This is so cool. Because last week, like when we were talking about Balak and the curse that turned into a blessing of Bilam, and how it's always about the Jews, and this tremendously inordinate, disproportional obsession with Israel. We spoke about this in the video as well. Look, so like the number one place that you have to worry about on earth is the Dome of the Rock. Oh, like, the Wizard of Oz, like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the destruction being waged, the swath that's being cut by the Scythe of Islam. Well, Yitchak, you don't know if it's Scythe or Sith? But
Scythe.
You're an English major.
I say scythe, but you won't agree with me, so what's the point, Rabbi?
All around the world, ignore all that. Third irony, which might be the first irony, there's no order here. Ein mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah. The third irony I'd like to point out about the timing of the CNN story is the fact that as of this moment, ladies and gentlemen, as of today, the Temple Mount is closed to non-Muslims, period, for the last 10 days of Ramadan. You know why? Because the Muslims have Israel's
Careful.
have Israel's ruling elite in a stranglehold of fear. And, 2 days ago, the Temple Mount was closed to Jews because there were about 5 or 6 masked youths that were throwing rocks at the door. Not hundreds, not ISIS, not nuclear bombs, not fire bombs, not anything. There were a couple of agitators that wanted to stave off the large amounts of Jews that arrived to ascend the Temple Mount on Sunday in observance of the 17th of Tammuz. So they just made a little noise, and the police acquiesced. And since then, it was reported first last night on Arabic websites and social media, and it was denied by the police. It was reported that the police agreed to the demands of the Muslim clerics, the Waqf, that they will not allow Jews on the Temple Mount for the last 10 days of Ramadan. They denied it, but this morning, good as gold, it's posted on the Temple Institute's Facebook page. You can see the sign that was placed on the gates of the Mughrabi entrance, the only entrance authorized for non-Muslims to go up to the Temple Mount, that said, sorry, but closed for the last 10 days of Ramadan. So, why is all of this amazing? Because the president of Israel, Reuven, was just speaking, and he said, just looking for my article here, he said, again, a little slow response time here with this computer.
I could fill in the meantime with another irony.
Go ahead.
Another irony is that this complaint, which was lodged by Jordan in 1982, Jordan, while it was in control of Jerusalem's old city from 49 to 1967, systematically destroyed 34 synagogues, as well as other buildings of historical and religious significance, and also desecrated I guess it's the most ancient cemetery in the world, the Mount of Olives, Jewish cemetery, the Mount of Olives. In fact, using many of the headstones to line latrines used in army barracks of the Jordanian legionnaires. So the chutzpah of Jordan to register that complaint, and the chutzpah of CNN to use that as a benchmark for determining which site is the most in danger of being extinct is just extraordinary. Have you found your spot, Rabbi?
No, but my computer's not responding. But he was saying basically that Ramadan, the president of Israel, Reuven, was saying that Ramadan has been hijacked by extremists, and that we should not allow that. And it was reminding me very much of what we mentioned last week about liberal media in Boston, commenting on the Boston massacre, the Boston Marathon bomber having brought up Allah and Islam in his remarks, and how the Boston liberal media was rushing to say, he shouldn't have mentioned Allah because it's not about Islam, this troubled young man. In other words, we'll tell you why you killed those people, not because you're a Muslim. And so here too, Reuven is rushing to assure the Arabs of Israel that we're on their side, we understand them, this isn't about Ramadan, we understand that, but of course it is about Ramadan.
And this is what they do on Ramadan. And in fact, there was a very erudite article on the web, on the internet last week by Mordechai Kedar, who's I guess you call an Arabist. It's his specialty, history of Islam, etc. And he said, yes, this is very, very, very emblematic of Ramadan. It's every year like this. And in fact, I even read, Rabbi, something by a Muslim who said it's time that the Muslims start fessing up to the fact that this is Islam, and that ISIS is Islam, and that violence is Islam, and that Islam needs like a relaunch or something because it's screwed up.
And of course, we reflect on the fact that it was a year ago that Israel was thrust into the tremendous trauma of the kidnapping and murder of the 3 boys, and everything that entailed, and the ensuing Gaza incursion. And this month, unfortunately, we have seen from the advent of Ramadan a number of fatal terror attacks and other attempts at fatal terror attacks practically on a daily level. But in the meantime, we need to do our thing. It's not about blaming Islam, it's about focusing on our relationship with God and our need to bring that light. into the world.
That bespeaks parashat Pinchas to me.
Parashat Pinchas is really pretty amazing because it begins with actually a bridge between last week's Torah portion, which was Balak, which we didn't mention in our broadcasts last week because we were concentrating on the dynamic of Bilam and Balak and the issue of the obsession and the blessing and everything. But the fact is that in the end, when they saw that it wasn't working, that Balak's plan to drive Israel away through Bilam's sorceric. I just invented a word. Words.
I would say
sorceric. Sorceric wasn't going to work. Instead, they decided to influence the people, sway the people through promiscuity, and knowing that the God of Israel doesn't like that at all, they decided to seduce the people of Israel with their own daughters, and that was a turning point. The parashat Balak ended with a very unseemly incident with a man from Israel who openly was sinning with a Midianite woman, and nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew what is the response of Jewish law when this is done flagrantly with witnesses, having been warned. What is the reaction? And interestingly, the verse states in chapter 25 in verse 6 that he was doing this in sight of Moses and in sight of the entire assembly, and they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And the idea being expressed there is that the leaders of Israel didn't know what to do, so they were weeping because they forgot what God's instructions were in this case. And Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. This is very interesting who Pinchas was, because he was of the priestly descent, but he wasn't yet inaugurated as a Kohen. And this was kind of like his own private priesthood that he received through this action that he did. He took a spear and he killed both of them, the man and the woman, on the spot. And that halted this plague against the children of Israel. And then this week's Torah portion, which is named for Pinchas, begins with Hashem saying, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, turned back my wrath from upon the children of Israel, when he zealously avenged my vengeance among them. So I did not consume the children of Israel in my vengeance. And therefore say, behold, I give him my covenant of peace. And then he gets this eternal priesthood, this super priesthood, which is so amazing that it was through this action of vengeance that God says, this is peace. This is now my covenant of peace. And all of the detailed analysis that we have in the rabbinic tradition about who Pinchas was and what he achieved on the spiritual level that he achieved through this action, which ostensibly one could look at and say, oh, what, he's like a murderer? Like, what is this, like a Jewish gangster? Like, what did he do here exactly? And in fact, that was the reaction of many of the people. Like, this is, is that the way of the Torah? Is that how a nice Jewish boy acts? Is that how Aaron HaKohen would act? Aaron's whole attribute was peace and loving kindness. And the fact is that this is what the hour demanded, and this is what set back the divine wrath, as it were. So he did that because he did it out of a perfect mixture of chesed and din. And this is so important to understand. It's like the Midrash talks about how when God created the world in the very beginning, he actually, this is very, very famous thought, right, in rabbinic tradition. He created the world first only with the attribute of justice, din, right? Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. First, God created the world with the aspect of harsh justice, but he saw that it was not going to last. It wasn't a good idea, and therefore he hewed into the mix a blend of loving kindness as well. And this is, of course, a paradigm, and it's a very deep idea. What God didn't know that he was going to have to do that. What, he changed his mind, his plan B? No, all this is to teach us a very, very deep lesson that the world exists through a perfect mixture, a perfect balance. And one has to know, just as God himself teaches us, just as he had to know when to turn up the switch, the dial of compassion, and when to turn up the switch, the dial of strict judgment, so too every person has to be the same way. And even though the Kohanim in the Holy Temple, the descendants of Aaron, they represent chesed, they represent pure love and kindness and compassion. You know what? Sometimes that chesed has to be manifest in din. It has to be manifest in judgment. And that's exactly what Pinchas realized. And that is such a deep thing, because that act of what could be perceived of as just like a wow, like swift, unmitigated, merciless justice, you know what? That was the greatest compassion of all for the children of Israel. And if only we understood this, and if only we understood, look how we are totally, at the mercy of these horrible, malignant forces, and we are like bending over backwards from a governmental level to accommodate the forces that are trying to destroy us, because we are so into chesed, right? The Temple Mount, close it to the Jews. So what if they're on a murder streak, a murder spree? Give them what they want and show that we are a doormat. We will accommodate you. And it's amazing that this is happening now, this whole Temple Mount scene and the closure, which is like basically like, what, is basically we say to our enemies, you know what, I'll make it easy for you. Well, I'll just shoot myself in the head, okay? And then maybe you'll like me. And in the very week of parashat Pinchas, that opens with this act of a man who is associated in Torah with the idea of an eternal priesthood, and a man who is called, God says he got my covenant of peace. You know why? Because he knew when to step in and to exact justice. So justice is not about just like, being everybody's patsy, as it were, which is exactly what we are. Anyway, just some rambling initial thoughts about parashat Pinchas, and we'll be right back. Here's the music. Temple Talk, coming right back, right after this.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitchak Reuven, and with me in the studio, Rabbi Chaim Richman. Today, the 20th day of the month of Tammuz, 5775. It is July 7th, 2015. As we mentioned before, this coming Shabbat Parashat Pinchas, is also Shabbat Mavarchin, the Shabbat of a blessing of the coming of the new month of Menachem Av, which will be Thursday night, Friday in the coming week. We've been talking about parashat Pinchas. I mentioned parashat Pinchas in the middle of our discussion because it really is about bringing in new leadership. And it is to an extent about the ineffectiveness of the current leadership, in that, as you mentioned, they were paralyzed, didn't know what to do. They were crying. And on the one hand, in our current situation today, I just find it so ironic that basically Prime Minister Netanyahu has become the President Barack Obama of the Temple Mount, meaning what Barack Obama is vis-a-vis Iran and their nuclear ambitions, which Netanyahu is so opposed to. Netanyahu is himself enabling what's happening on the Temple Mount, which is the complete takeover of terror. And terror doesn't come from nowhere. It's all being manipulated by the same forces. He's so invested in rallying his people and the world, and rightly so, around the Iranian threat, which in his estimation, and he has a very unenviable position, and he is responsible for the security of the Jewish people. And so he's so invested in rallying everybody around understanding the depth of the Iranian threat. And yet on the Temple Mount,
we posted pictures of what was going on this past Friday. The presence of the most vile and dangerous Islamic terrorists in the heart of Jerusalem.
Happen to be the puppets of Iran as well.
And when you see a rally with Hamas flags unfurled and ISIS flags and all the terror cells that exist in the old city of Jerusalem and that come and basically just strut their stuff openly under the skies of the State of Israel on the Temple Mount at the center, the epicenter of holiness and everything that means anything to the Jewish people, that is, first of all, you're right. They're all the proxies of Iran because Iran's plan is to destroy in every way from within and from without. And so it's like he's got these blinders on and like he's going.
Obama has blinders.
He's going that way, but he's like, hello, if you would uproot that terrible tumor from your own body, that would send a message of such power. Throughout the world, it would cause like seismic shock waves in the Arab world that say, "Whoa, they really mean business. They're going to be, taking responsibility for themselves," and that hasn't happened.
No, and what disappoints me more, Netanyahu is Netanyahu. He's not going to change. He's not going to change. This has been his MO, his modus operandi for many years. He's not going to change, but all the other self-proclaimed representatives, members of the government, who are like those notables who stood outside the encampment. They stood outside the tent of meeting and just wept when they saw what was going on, the desecration going on in front of their eyes at the end of last week's parasha. They wept. They were paralyzed with the inability to do anything. And where are all our representatives? The very same ones who months ago, while they were campaigning, said, and actually was the current Minister of Police, of Internal Security, who said the Temple Mount, the situation in the Temple Mount is intolerable. Jews need to have rights there. They are completely silent. They are doing exactly what happened at the end of last week's parasha, and we await a Pinchas to shake things up. Now, frankly, Rabbi, you and I think we are both Pinchases, and our spear is truth. I think that's our spear, and that's what we are trying to cut through all the lies and all the hypocrisy with. But we're just two little guys here.
There's an expression in Hebrew which I think is a thread that unites some of the themes in this week's Torah portion. The expression is Mesirut Nefesh. Mesirut Nefesh literally means to give over, to be willing to give over your life, really. It means to be willing to give up your life or to put all of your life force into what you're doing. So Pinchas, by doing what he did under tremendous opposition and with a tremendous amount of derision by the rest of the people, he exhibited this high degree of Mesirut Nefesh, of a willingness to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Now, later on in the Torah portion, after the census, which takes place out of God's love, because of now he wants to do a reckoning after the plague, we find ourselves meeting up with the daughters of Tzelafchad, right? Famous incident that we have here of these 5 women, Machla, Noah, Chagla, Milka, and Tirza, these 5 women who stood before Moshe and before the leadership, Elazar Kohen, and the entire assembly, and they said, "Our father died in the wilderness, but he was not among the assembly that was gathering against Hashem in the assembly of Korach, but he died of his own sin and had no sons." And there's a consensus of opinion that he was actually the mystery man who was gathering the wood, right, that we learned about at the end of Parashat Shalach. Whoever he was, he died with only daughters, and the law of inheritance that Moshe understood ad ko, in other words, until this point, he understood that it was a patrilineal halacha as far as a proportion of land in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel. So they said, but wait a minute, we don't have any brothers, and so therefore our father's name is going to be omitted, and there's not going to be a possession for his name in the land of Israel. So again, just as we found with the beautiful concept of the second Passover in Parashat Bahalotcha, again, here we have a groundbreaking precedent from the ground up, where Moshe had to come before Hashem and say, whoa, here's something that I didn't think of, you didn't tell me, and what do I do about this case? And Hashem said to Moshe, the daughters of Tzelafchad speak properly. You have to give them a possession. And then he explains in detail, Hashem explains in detail the halacha, that if a person has no sons, how it works, and what if he has no daughter, who does it go to, etc., etc. And right after this, by the way, interestingly, as far as the timing is concerned, then we have this high drama in verse 12 of chapter 27, where Hashem said to Moshe, go up to this mountain and see the land. And this was Moshe's first opportunity to see the land that he's not going to be going into from this high mountain. And the daughters of Tzelafchad, they are like the exact diametric polar opposites of the tribes of Reuven and Gad and half of Manasseh that wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan because there was lush grazing pasture there and they had a lot of flocks. And they were like, their attitude, right, was extremely secular about the land of Israel. Like, you know, it's good for me here, it's good for me there. Like so many Jews say to me today, like, wherever you got parnasa, that's fine. You know, Jews say, well, you know, I'm making a lot of money in Antwerp, or I have a very good business in Brooklyn, so why should I go to Israel? Now I'll go when Mashiach comes, meaning when he makes me, right? The joke is going to be that Mashiach is going to say, you know what, you're not invited, you had your chance. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Here you go with those tribes who are saying, like, you know what difference does it make? We'll be on this side of the Jordan. But here these women are saying, we can't be outside the land of Israel. We have to perpetuate our Father's name, and we have to have a possession in the land of Israel. They're like ultimate Zionists. They're like ultimate believers in Hashem's land, that they know that the people of Israel must go into this land. And that degree of Mesirut Nefesh that it took from them, that tremendous willingness to go for broke, all or nothing. Who knows what Hashem is going to say? That to come forward and to say to Moshe, could you please find out what can be done with us, and to initiate a new law in the Torah of God, and to say, we can't live without a portion in the land of Israel. That's like the same place in the soul from whence Pinchas culled, that's C-U-L-L-E-D, his strength and his power. So it's amazing to read this at a time when we continue to read week after week about the position and attitudes of our brethren in the diaspora, about the land of Israel, about polarization, about alienation, about disenfranchisement from Israel, and the tremendous, powerful lesson of these women. And when you speak about crying at the entrance of the tent, Yitchak, and when you speak about the dearth of leadership, when you speak about the whole idea of how in these very Torah portions we are witnessing a transformation, a passage to the new leadership. These women are representative of what real leadership is. And as usual, it's the Jewish women who are the greatest leaders of all. And interestingly, and I think this is amazing, and I think this is a perfect proof to what I'm saying, what I'm feeling here, right? Right after this incident of the innovation in halacha, in Torah itself, based on the grievance of Tzelafchad's daughters, and Hashem saying they're absolutely correct, then Hashem says to Moshe, now come with me, and you're going to see the land that you're not going into. And as soon as he sees it, the very next verse 15, is Moshe says to Hashem saying, may Hashem, God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the assembly who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall take them out and bring them in, and let the assembly of Hashem not be like sheep and have no shepherd. And then Hashem said to Moshe, you know what? Take to yourself Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom there is spirit, and lean your hand upon him. And this is, as it were, the mantle is going to be passed to Yoshua. There we have it officially from God's own words to Moshe here. But so what was the sequence here? Tzelafchad's daughters, they're, like I said, representative of the opposite of crying at the gate, and the opposite of those tribes who were like so hedonistic that they wanted to stay on the other side of the Jordan. They're the new leadership. And then Moshe's like realizing that. So Hashem says to him, come up now and I'm going to show you. And Moshe's really sinking in now that he's not going in. And he is so, again, Mesirut Nefesh. He is all for everyone else and nothing for himself. his first reaction is, well, this is it then. And what does he care about? Does he care about his own needs, his own ego, his own legacy, his own posterity? No, he has one concern only, and that is who is going to lead this people, who is going to take them. And Hashem says, okay, so you're going to appoint Joshua.
And that itself is such a contrast from today's leadership in Israel, who are loath to give up any power and stick around way beyond their time. And the younger, up-and-coming leadership can't take control. By the time they do, they're already the old leadership. So,
are you getting what I'm trying to say? Because I'm trying to say that maybe his inspiration to ask for this at this point is because he just went through this with the daughters of Tzelafchad. And we must point out, as we do, that when the people of Israel did go into the land under the leadership of Yehoshua, the majority of the people were women.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a disproportionate amount of older women that went in because they were not included in the decree against Israel at the spies, and they did not pass away. And so really, I mean, in a way, Joshua's cabinet, as it were, of advisors, the old guard that represented the continuum of the experience of coming from Egypt and the desert and everything, they were the women of the children of Israel, best represented by the daughters of Tzelafchad. Interestingly, after this, the parasha continues first with the description of the tamid daily offering in the holy temple, which is now, I mean, so far from what's going on, and then the cycle of the
holidays,
offerings that are going to be brought in the temple on Rosh Chodesh, on Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. And here it's in this week's Torah portion that we find this description of the offerings that are brought in the Holy Temple. So what's the connection between that, and is there a connection between that and everything that we've been reading so far with Pinchas's dedication with the women of the daughters of Tzelafchad and the passage from Moshe to Joshua, and now all of a sudden...
Let's list the things. There's leadership involved. There's Mesirut Nefesh, the giving over of one's entire self to achieve something holy. There's standing up for the land of Israel and insisting on your part in the land of Israel. There's leadership. There's Moshe's ability to see that he needs to ask Hashem for a new leader. What do all these things have in common with the Holy Temple and with the service in the Holy Temple? What could it be, Rabbi? What could be the thread that binds them all together?
I mean, everything comes alive in the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is the answer to all of these themes. That is where the dedication comes to be manifest. That is where the love of the land of Israel it comes to be manifest. That is where leadership is manifest. And that is where that degree of closeness that Pinchas felt himself in his own heart and revealed to the rest of the people becomes like an everyday occurrence in the Holy Temple. So it's like, the Torah is like a map. And every time suddenly an idea is introduced, especially I find ideas relating to the Holy Temple, it's like a giveaway to Hashem basically pointing that this is where everything I'm trying to tell you comes true, and everything could be different and could be a higher level of reality, of revelation, of life lived, that it isn't a dream, but it could be real, and this is the way to make it come true. Which, of course, is exactly what we're fighting for. If you say that we're a type of Pinchas, exactly what we're trying to say about everything, and exactly why the forces of terror, which, of course, are the forces of Islam, are aligned against us and are so manifest in the Muslim holy month, which is the twinner of the month of Tammuz this year, which is the month of mourning and hopefully of action for the destruction of the Holy Temple. It's like everybody knows the secret is out. We are getting ready to build the Holy Temple, and so the death throes of the ugly husk of evil that hold these things for ransom, it's fighting against us, but it is death throes, and we will win. Speaking of which, first of all, 1 week from this Thursday, on the eve of Rosh Chodesh Av, the Temple Institute will be hosting its 34th annual Conference on Temple Research. That will be held, I believe, in an auditorium on Mount Zion. If you are in Jerusalem, I believe that it begins at 4 o'clock. We will be posting, probably as of Sunday, the details of the schedule and the place, location. We'll be posting that on Facebook and, of course, talking about it next Temple Talk. I'm not going to tell you at this moment the main topic of the research that will be revealed, unveiled, and discussed at this conference, because to do so would be to give away something else, which is a major, groundbreaking, earth-shattering, life-changing, game-changing announcement that we are going to be making on Sunday, which is, frankly and personally, if I may say, the result of almost 3 decades of intensive research, toil, and it is with profound emotion that I say, just stay tuned for something that is basically going to rock the world, and we're going to announce it on Sunday through the Temple Institute's social media, and the fine details of that revelation will be discussed on a highly scholarly level at the 34th annual Conference on Temple Research. A fitting attitude, a fitting way of relating to the month of Tammuz, the days that we're in. The 3 weeks of mourning for the Holy Temple are not about sitting and moping and crying and acting as if we care and acting as if we're so sorry. These 3 weeks of mourning are supposed to be bringing us to this, like, well, this has got to stop. This is too much for me. I've had it with mourning. Why in the world are we not building again? Why in the world are we not doing something about the situation? Well, actually, we are. I see that I have totally overwhelmed my best friend.
Yeah,
He is speechless.
I don't know what to add to that. Sunday is a big day in the annals of the world, I would say. And in the spirit of Tammuz, in the spirit of the new Tammuz.
Tell you a few more things about the announcement, okay? Just teasing. They said it couldn't be done, but we're doing it. They said it was a miraculous thing, but we said no, it can be done. They said, well, that's like mythical. And we said, no, it can be done. So you're going to see something that you never saw before.
Well, that's a teaser, but don't turn it into a spoiler, Rabbi.
I'm done.
I think it's also an expression, it's a Pinchasian expression of dedication, of zealotry for Hashem, and of taking a stand that will make a difference, that will change. And hopefully it will change a reality within people's hearts, within people's attitudes. And
that's the main thing. It's all about education. It's about action. It's about teaching and re-educating and reformatting the brain to understand that nothing is going to change if we do not take responsibility, that God instructs us not to wait for a miracle, to do our very, very best for His honor. And all, of course, within the confines of Jewish law, all with ultimate reverence and regard for, with the fear of heaven, for the state of the art of what it means to be a truly observant Jew. And contrary to popular belief, these commandments are alive and well, and the Jewish people are responsible for them. All the commandments relating to the Holy Temple, and we take that very, very seriously, and that is our life's blood.
In the meantime, Earlier we were talking about the Temple Mount and the constant seems difficulties and setbacks, but of course we are determined. There's just no other way, no other direction for history to be moving in. And so we will remain steadfast and we'll keep you updated, and we continue to encourage people. In fact, our own Rabbi Yisrael Ariel sent out a very impassioned message this week calling on all Jews to finally step up to the plate and go up to the Temple Mount. And what a message that would be for the entire world. Thank you for being with us. Temple Talk.